you want me to start, Don?
Heather, you ready?
Yes, let me know when to go.
Let's do it. We're good. We're live on Facebook and this is being recorded. This session is being recorded.
Hi, I'm Heather Brooks. I'm coming to you live from Los Angeles with eXp Seniors Network. We put together this real estate network to help understand the senior market. The senior market is one of the largest markets currently globally, not just here in the US. Is 10,000 people are turning 65 a day. That number is going to jump drastically as we get older. So we have brought in Marni to talk about downsizing and decluttering. Marni, I'm going to let you take it away.
Thank you, Heather. It's so nice to be here and talking about how to help seniors lighten up, let go, and discover the upside of downsizing. Actually, as we get into this, we're going to call this right sizing because I don't want this to sound like a downer at all. But it's my understanding that you all want to sell houses. And it's also my understanding that there's this group of folks out there that really likes to hang on to their stuff, especially those folks in their golden years. And they would do very well to sell and move, but their stuff is standing between them and a better life. It's also standing between you and a sale. So I understand that just the thought of letting go for some of these people is like cement that just tethers them to their homes and they can't even see a better way. So what I want to talk to you about today is how I unwittingly became a downsizing expert, a little bit about my journey, some resources that I have created that might help you as you help move these people along. But more important, I'm going to have you come away with some tips and conversations to better understand this group and help them overcome the hurdles. So how you can turn these prospective sellers into real sellers. So, and I know this event today is for seniors, but I don't want to exclude everybody else because we all have this tendency to stick to stuff. And it happens at all ages. It just gets worse with age because for a few reasons, older people have more stuff. They've had more time to accumulate stuff and they tend to cling more and they get more set in their ways. So it's a particularly recalcitrant market. And but we're going to get through that. We understand, we're going to meet the Mrs. McGillicuddy who at 73 can't let go of her son's Boy Scout uniform, and the Mr. Malarkey who still has his Letterman's jacket, and his wife who still has her corsage from senior prom who she went to with another guy. You know who I'm talking about. These are homeowners, and this may be you, who just can't just roll through life as if they're mummy wrapped in Velcro and everything sticks to them and they can't let anything go. So we're going to help you with that. I understand that you guys are real estate agents, but you also have to be sociologists, psychologists, archaeologists, and we're going to get through all of that today. So, we have to realize there's something very large going on here. It's not just stuff. It is the rise of consumption, the fall of civilization, abundance, guilt, gluttony, denial, mortality, legacy. All this is bundled up in our stuff. And we're going to talk about why we get so attached and how to overcome some of that. So first of all, I want to, the hurdles are, oh, I'm erasing my past. If I let go of this, there go the memories. There goes my identity. This is my history. Oh, I'm getting so old. All of these things are concerns. So we're going to reframe that, and you're going to talk to your clients about this is not downsizing, this is right sizing, and we're reframing all these negative thoughts into positive ones. Here are a few. I'm giving you a handful. Just kind of take these down. These are just talking points to help turn the frame of reference over to something very positive. You are not downsizing, you are right sizing. Nature shows us, as we see with animals, that we must shed to grow. We have to shed our old stuff and our old skin to become better and become the person we're meant to be. We don't want to leave a mess to our kids. I'm going to talk to you about my parents, God bless them, and then the home that I had to clear out and how difficult that was and how heart-wrenching it was. And I certainly don't want to do that to my children. So we want to really think about what's in our wake and what we're doing to the next generation. It's really true that living in the past robs you of the present. The present is all we have. And these people who live in their past and they have all these past lives and all these photos and all these memories, I don't want you to get rid of the memories and the stories, but I do want to get you rid of the stuff that tethers you down, holds you down, and robs you of having a wonderful now. As you all know, I don't need to tell you, but you need to tell them that and I'll tell you, I was a home stager, so I lived in houses that I had to sell. Decluttered houses show and sell better. And the less you have, the less you pay to move. That's all. These are all things that might help move them into seeing this whole event as much more positive. Okay, so I'm going to tell you a little bit about my downsizing journey. As some of you may know, I write a home design and lifestyle column, and I have written this for, oh gosh, since 2003, so 18 years now. And around 2013, I started writing a series of columns about my parents' house. Meet Nancy and Neil. Here they are shortly after they met in Hollywood in 1952. These are my parents. And they were married for a long time, 62 years. And they ended up in assisted living. There's my brother and me. And they were in California. And this is the house that we lived in. This is the only house I ever knew. There's not a window I didn't climb through. And it was packed. It didn't have a basement. This is California, but it was packed. It was 1,700 square feet packed. And they were 89, moved into assisted living. And my brother took care of he was older and was the kind of executor, took care of the financials and finding a place for them to live. And I was living in Florida, but I'm like, I got the house, I'll take care of the house stuff, right? So I had a full-time job at the Orlando Sentinel. I was a reporter, health reporter there. And I had a daughter in high school. So I took a week off. She parked my daughter with a friend and flew in, said, oh, I'll be able to take care of this in, a week and 2 weekends, just clear it out and sell it. And the goal was to clean it out and sell it to finance their long-term care. So, I thought that would be so easy, but it was heartbreaking. And it was, I'll get to that in a second, but I ended up obviously realizing how incredibly difficult this is when you're dealing with your own stuff. It's hard enough, but dealing with your parents' stuff has this extra layer of sentiment, and you want to be a good steward of their things and things they thought were priceless. You want to recognize maybe it isn't priceless, maybe it's not worth anything, but you still have to respect it because you respect them and you're seeing them go through a difficult time. So all of that, I was writing a column and sharing my thoughts and talking to grief counselors and estate planners and appraisers and dealing with this. And my readers were saying, please put this into a book, and going through the same thing. Meanwhile, as if life wasn't complicated enough, I was going through a parallel track of my own life. I left a 20-year marriage and moved to Florida, and I became a live-in home stager. I had a fully loaded house in Colorado, but having divorced, I moved some of those belongings to Florida, and I lived in other people's houses until they sold. So I staged them. I lived beautifully. Fortunately, I had my neat daughter, not my sloppy daughter, who was off to college. And I lived in 6 houses in 4 years. These were about 3,000 to 4,000 square foot homes, big houses with all my stuff, beautifully furnished, as I believe it was, to sell, to move again. So this was part of my transition because I wasn't able to buy a new house yet because I still had a house. I didn't know how I was going to get along in Florida, or how my daughter was going to like school, my job was going to like me, all those things. So I had a nice temporary living situation, but it required that I picked up and moved. Picking up and moving 6 times in 4 years causes you to pare down. So I got very good at decluttering and getting rid of what I really didn't need to use and love. Well, as luck would have it, I met a wonderful man and we got married. And now we have 5 kids and nice life together, except he's a widower and he had a fully loaded house when we got married. And we're in our midlife. And guess what? 1 house plus 1 house has to equal 1 house. So we had to get rid of half a house each to create 1 house. And that's a lot. So There's the blended home math. This is another extreme downsizing that I don't think people get, especially with seniors who have tons of materials. And so I wouldn't be in an institution knocking my head against the wall in a padded cell and drooling. I wrote a few books. I wrote Downsizing the Family Home, how to deal with that avalanche that your parents can leave to you, and also how not to leave an avalanche to your kids. And then, because my publisher thought it was a good idea, and I guess it wasn't my idea. The best ideas are not my ideas. I wrote a workbook. This is a scrapbook that the readers of the first book can use to chronicle where everything went. Because I'm a big believer in hang on to the memories, not the stuff. What people don't want to get rid of is the stories. So this is a scrapbook journal. You can put a picture of grandpa sticking his favorite fishing lure and talk about how much he loved to fish and not keep the tackle box and the 27 fishing poles, right? And the wedding dress, you can keep a scrap of it, picture of mom on wedding day, and give the dress to a theater shop, whatever. And then I wrote Downsizing the Blended Home, When Two Houses Become One. All of this is because I was just writing columns along the way, going through it myself, and I have access to experts who were helping me with my journey, and in turn, I was helping my readers as they came along too, because everyone has to go through this at some point. Then the final book, a publisher approached me and said, once you cross that finish line, how do you put all your stuff into a magic funnel and have it come out as liquid cash, wouldn't that be nice, on the other side, and leave it in a meaningful way? So you have to start thinking about your things as useful to you now, and then transitioning kind of like energy into cash for the future, or maybe to a cause that you love, and really think about everything you own in a new way and how you can transfer that into something more meaningful. And for your audience of older people moving into a new place, it might be freeing up cash so they can travel, or they can live a better life, or they can leave a legacy or help the causes that are meaningful to them. All right, so that's my past, how I got here, the resources I wrote, blah, blah, blah. And here's what is the hard stop. The hard stop for people is they start looking at their stuff and they get a big bad case of the feels. And they run into the closet that they, just throws them back into some reverie that they can't quite, shake. And then they just stop in their tracks. So I like to just help people get through this and tell them, this is the best way out is through this. You can put a box of bad memories aside and we can deal with it later. Start where it's simple, but this is for all the ways to identify with your client that yes, you're going to hit a box of the feels. You're going to go into that attic and not ever want to come down. It happens. And this is normal. People have to realize this is part of life. So with all of that, I want to talk about how to lighten up. These are tips, concrete tips you can pass along to your clients and help them to lighten up, let go, and discover the upside of downsizing or right sizing. I think that it's important to help them understand that although it takes work, like anything that's worthwhile, it takes effort. There's such a freedom on the other side. And I really, really want to hope that you can get them to visualize that is some of the biggest barriers we have to living a more beautiful life is that we can't let go of things that are holding us back, whether they're relationships or their household belongings. So I think it's important to help them know that there is something better on the other side. I think one of the summary thoughts I have is that sorting through a lifetime of belongings is tough, whether it's yours or someone else's, but it's tough because it represents a life and people think life matters. So they're really invested in all of this, and it gets amplified when people feel that they're coming toward the end of their life, and it's very, can be psychologically upsetting. So it's important to help them understand that letting go of all the dishes and linens and books and artwork is not erasing who they were. It is lightening up for the next generation and helping them transition those items into cash or freedom or something that is better. So one of the really important things to me that I discovered in my journey as I was researching this is understanding the actual psychological underpinnings of attachment. In attachment, there's something called, in psychology, there's something called the endowment theory. And this happens at a very young age when babies get attached to a blanket, or this case, a little girl and her teddy bear. It could be a special pacifier. But what happens is that the child, the infant and the child gets attached to these items in place to replace their mom or dad. Those security attachments in their life, when mom or dad isn't around to cling to, they get secure with something else that reminds them and replaces temporarily that mom or dad. And these surrogate objects fill in when the parent isn't available to cling to. And it's really important for kids to have these secure attachments. It's irrational and we think it's cute, but it's really important. And guess what? We never lose that. We need these secure attachments our whole life in things. They just get more sophisticated. The objects change. For us, it might be our wedding ring. I mean, I would be heartbroken if I lost that. It might be for somebody who's achieved a certain status in life, it might be his car. It might be a certain pieces of art or achievements, things that reflect achievements that we've made. We endow every single thing that we own is endowed with meaning of some sort. If you went and got a purse when you're on vacation in San Diego and you bring it home, you're going to remember not just the purse, but where you were, who you were with, the point of the trip. It gets endowed. And that psychological is the psychological underpinning of why we get attached. So it's way deeper than, oh, it's just stuff. So it's important to understand the underpinnings of attachment is based in the endowment theory, and that we endow everything we have with meaning. But once we understand that, we realize it's just stuff and we can help move on and move through. So I think it's good to help people understand that this is very normal, reasonable, and it has psychological underpinnings, but it doesn't mean they can't move through it. So the other point I like to have people make and understand is help them find their motivation. So again, kind of back to that reframing idea. When you kind of say, look, this is not about your life getting worse and erasing your memories and your past and your history and moving down. This is about shedding to move forward, to find yourself who you are today, and to find your motivation to see what it's like on the other side. So if you're moving to a smaller house, you figure out why are you letting go of stuff? Because you want to have a lighter footprint, because you want to have a smaller home with less maintenance, because you're getting married and moving in with a partner and you have to shed half of your things, because you're embarrassed to have friends over, because you don't want to leave a mess to your kids, because you want order and simplicity and space, or maybe you want to sell things and have some cash. You want to be in charge of your legacy instead of having someone else be in charge of it. If you don't deal with it, somebody is going to deal with it, and they're not going to be as reverential as you might be. And maybe you realize that your clients have realized that stuff drags them down, and what they don't have to own, they don't have to clean and sort and store and pay the real estate for and all of that and maintain. So find these good reasons to let go and visualize this really great future with less, and that helps your client move along. I like to start with the end in mind, where you picture the new place, picture just enough dishware and just enough glasses that you need, use, and love. Think of everything being orderly, and start with that end in mind and back into it, because sometimes they just can't picture anything but what they currently have. And if they can picture a simpler, cleaner, more orderly, more beautiful life, it'll start to be a positive experience. So I think it's important to listen to, and seniors might take a little extra time as clients to convince them to sell. I mean, they're probably teetering. If you're in their house talking about listing their house, they're probably teetering, but they're kind of moving forward and going back and moving forward and going back and having some ambivalence. So I think it's important obviously one of your conversations will be, you know, well, if you're going to move to a smaller place, you want to get rid of some things, and this might be a good time to go through and declutter, and listen to what is stopping them. Say, you know, why don't you want to let go of your things, without telling them why, because maybe they have a different reason. But the reasons you typically hear, oh, but everything is still in good condition, I might need it someday, it was expensive, so and so gave it to me, I wore it to my daughter's graduation in 1972, I'm saving it for my kids, I'm sure they want it, you know, it reminds me of so and so, but it was mom's. All these reasons, all these loaded reasons. And then see if you can guide them to the filter that I use, and the filter that really finally does work to help you live in the present and not in the past is, do I need it? Do I use it? Do I love it? Need, use, love. I'm not asking or suggesting anybody get rid of stuff they need, use, or love. But if they're not using it, if they've got lots of duplicates, if it's not serving their life right now, if they don't really love it, probably best to let it go. So I don't think there's anything that I've written about in 8 years of writing this column than the column I wrote about the kids don't want your stuff. The kids don't want your stuff. And it's really, really hard. And when I give speeches on this to seniors, they're like, oh, but they're going to change their mind. You know, I've got this heirloom bed headboard that, you know, I just know when they come to their senses, they're going to want it someday. So I say this, ask them. If they say no, believe them. Don't say, oh, they'll change their mind. Because isn't it your point as a parent to have your kids learn from their mistakes? So if they make the mistake of saying, oh, darn it, I should have taken that headboard. Oh, well, you learn from your mistakes, and that's your job as a parent. So that's really kind of just a rationale, because the kids really don't want your stuff. They want their own stuff. They want their own decor. Now, if they want it, and I've asked my kids, what do you want of mine? So should the day come, or if you're moving, there are some things they like, good, and they can have them, but I am not going to enforce anything on them. So don't delude yourself and get lazy about and keep stuff because you're trying to convince yourself that your kids will come around someday and really appreciate the china cabinet or the dining room table. That's a fantasy. So number 4 is, oh, I just love this. This is Peter Walsh. He's a writer. He's written about this. Need, use, and love is his mantra too. So that's how that looks. This is what it looks like if you don't clean up. This was my parents' house. It looks like the cupboards vomited their contents all over the place. And then there are people coming and picking through stuff, and stuff you think is worth $100 is worth 10 cents. I mean, it's a mess, and I'm dealing with this. It's just, don't do this to your kids. So I have a friend who says, this is a little bit of a dark expression, but I like it. She says, her mom used to say, I'm getting my drawers in dying order. I love that. Think about, the meteor hits you, you walk outside, you get hit by a meteor, and somebody has to come up and clean up behind you, and they look in your drawers. I think about that. I don't want people looking in my drawers. Here I am, the downsizing expert, right? And having it look like the dog's breakfast. So you need to make sure things are orderly, streamlined, thinned out. This stuff my mom had collected hadn't been used in years. She had enough doilies to cover the surface of the moon. It was insane. Look at the sewing machine in the back. It's like, oh my God. So I'm dealing with this. I don't know what to do with this. I've got my own fully loaded house. I've got kids in school and college. This is a headache. It's a total headache. Just saying. The goal is to bestow a blessing, not a burden. And I love my parents and I respect them, but my goodness, it's keeping everything is not only burdensome, it's impractical and it's costly and it prevents you from enjoying life now. So we had to liquidate this, you know, it turned into not as much cash. You know, the average house, and I've written a lot about this, talking to liquidators like Max Sold, you may have heard of them, and Everything But the House. These are companies that come in and do what I did without any expertise, because I didn't know they existed. But actually, I kind of wanted to do it myself. But but they will come in and liquidate an entire house. And across North America, having done this hundreds and hundreds of times, thousands of times, the average house, if I had an audience, I'd ask you to take a wild guess, but since I can't hear you, the average house in North America nets, when you get, except for cars and boats and riding lawnmowers, if you take that out, the house contents nets under $5,000. It's usually between $3,500 and $5,000. And people sometimes think their dining room table is worth that. They're wrong. It's not worth that much. So let it go. Okay, play it forward. Imagine what it's going to look like someday to the poor people that have to mop up after you. All right, we want to bestow a blessing, not a burden. We talked about that. Okay, now I'm going to rant. Now, speaking to realtors, I get that you want to just expedite the sale, get this over the end zone. And if people say, well, I'll just get a storage locker, the temptation might be, yeah, just get it into storage, whatever. I'm sorry, I've got some lawnmower or something behind me. Okay, the United States has 53,000 storage facilities. That's facilities, not individual lockers, facilities with lockers in them. That is more than all of the Starbucks, all of the Subways, and all of the McDonald's combined. We have 53,000. The rest of the world has 10,000. The whole world has 10,000. And we in North America have 53,000. And 90% of it is full. This makes me want to throw up. We have a problem. We can't just park our stuff in storage. We have a consumption problem. We have a letting go problem. We have a hoarding problem. The amount of stuff, the worth of the stuff in these lockers is not anywhere near the amount that these people pay. At $125 a month times 12 is $1,500 a year over year. It just is such a waste. It's not the storage company's problem. It's not, they're just dealing with what consumers need. You can't do this. Stop and people from doing this as much as you can. I recently talked to a guy who lives here in Orlando, and he told me he had a collection of, wait for it, old beer cans. He and his buddies go out with the little metal detectors at campsites where they may have had the Civil War, I don't know, and they find this old beer can and he thinks it's a relic and he saves it. Okay, awesome. Well, I can't imagine his wife loves these in her house. So I say, well, where do you have them? Oh, they're in storage. Oh, so you're paying to store these, yes. And then he's in Orlando, Florida. They're in Idaho. The beer cans are in storage in Idaho. I'm not making this up. This is nuts, nuts. Okay, just saying, don't store. Try to discourage it. I was walking in New York and I saw this sign on a building, which I like. And it's, I guess in New York, the apartments are so dinky, a lot of people store. It's not good. All right, so as you help your sellers, potentially there's going to be sellers, sort through their things. Here are some ways to help them kind of move through. One is when going through a cupboard or closet, I just did this myself. I don't do anything, I don't recommend anything I don't try myself. I'm not perfect for sure, but I took everything out of my closet just recently, everything. And I went shopping. And instead of going through my closet when everything's hanging in and say, oh, I'll keep this, I'll keep this, I'll keep this, I took everything out and said, I would buy this again, and I would buy this again. You get rid of a lot more when you choose to keep or shop your things rather than choose to exclude. So that helps right there. And people often ask me, where do they start? I like to recommend two things. In a space that's big or big that will make a big difference. And I'll explain that in a second. And in a space that's not too personal. I just wrote about in my column that's hitting this week is 10 ways to love your linen closet. A linen closet is a great place to start because it's a place that buyers are going to look. It's often way too packed and it smells like a wet dog. So it really needs to be thinned out and cleaned out. And it's not super emotional. I mean, you can't get too emotional about towels. So go into your linen closet and start there and take everything out and you pick a number. Say, you know, we are 2 people. We don't need 25 towels. So occasionally we have family. Maybe we need 6. I don't know. Pick a number and stick with that number. And then even if they're in good condition, let somebody else use them. So start in a place that it's going to have a big impact. So you take everything out of your linen closet, you thin out things that are stained, the sheets that are hot or pill or don't breathe or don't fit. Why are you keeping them? Or they're zebra print and keep you up at night anyway. Get rid of the sheets you don't love, the towels that are stained or see-through, and just keep what's in good quality that you need, use, and love. Pick a number and don't have any more than you need. And then also that'll help give you put some guardrails up on your belongings, and that'll help your person as they're streamlining their house to make it look better to sell, also have less to move to the new place. I'd like to use this pick a number with everything. Think about vases. My mom had every single flower vase that she'd ever gotten. I mean, that's insane. They're 10 cents or $1 maybe, but get rid of them, repurpose them, put flowers in them and give them to a neighbor. You don't need more than 5 vases and, you know, maybe a few different shapes, but pick a number and stick with it. The other item, and same with plates and glasses and towels and flower pots and, gift bags. My mom saved all the gift bags that people gave her. You know, you only need a few. Let them go. We only have so much space. That's not controllable. What is controllable is the stuff we put in it. So especially if people are downsizing, and I recommend, you're probably aware of senior move managers. There are professionals who really help seniors and sit down with them. If you as a real estate agent have better things to do than talk people out of their skis when they're now 95, you help them understand that as they move, they actually measure the place in the kitchen. Like, okay, in your current kitchen, you have 25 feet of shelf space. In your new kitchen, you have 12. Let's do the math. Right now, we're filling up 24 feet of space on shelves, and now we have 12. Let's cut it in half. So try to do the math and understand that because the space is fixed, the items need to stay in those boundaries. So, like when my husband and I got married, I don't know why we had so much Tupperware. Having raised 5 kids separately, we had enough Tupperware to outfit a cafeteria, but we had to limit it to 1 Tupperware drawer. Everything else goes. So now we talk about value, which is such a slippery concept. What is value? Sentimental value is one thing, but market value is kind of what most people are talking about. So I think this is when I say sit down with a glass of something stiff and realize that most of your belongings are not worth what you think they're worth. So your Hummel collection, ma'am, your tools, sir, they're really not, oops, sorry, don't know why that's there. They're really not probably worth what you think they are. So here's what you tell your clients who are unsure about the value of something. Go on Craigslist or eBay and look for what similar items sold for. You can almost always find it. Not what they're asking, the asking price, but what the sales price was for these items. eBay is for little things like jewelry, and Craigslist is for bigger things like furniture, things that don't ship well or easily or inexpensively. So you get a sense pretty quick of what the value of. So this was an example of, this is something I seem to have trouble letting go of, and I finally did. But when I moved, separated from my marriage, and I moved into these houses that I was staging, I kept carting along this box of pink china, which no self-respecting man would ever want to eat on anyway. But I somehow wanted it. I had some, I don't know, I don't have tea parties. I don't know what I was thinking, but I acquired this and it was expensive. I spotted it when I was younger, much younger, in England, and accumulated these pieces. And yeah, my mom was born in Scotland, so I have this sort of British heritage thing going on. but I never used them, and it was expensive. Each plate was like $70, and I couldn't part with it until one day I went, I am sick of these home staging, dragging this box of pink china around wherever I go. And when I finally did sell it, I sold it, the whole shooting match, for $250 to a woman who loved it. It was fine. I got rid of it. Was it worth more? No, that's what the market will bear. Nobody wants pink china. China's overrated. So I got rid of it. I could not cling to thinking about what I paid for it. That was irrelevant. It's what will the market pay? $250. I had the cash. I got rid of the box. I made someone happy. It's a win-win. So I think that's an important lesson for your readers. This is another clock. My parents had this clock in the house. I didn't know what it was worth. It looked like it could be worth a fortune. I didn't know. It's this antique, came from my dad's side of the family, is over 100 years old. I'm like, good grief. I have no idea what I'm supposed to do with this thing. So fortunately, I contacted, because of my connections, I contacted a guy through the Antique Roadshow who was an expert on clocks. And he said, oh, it's a Seth Thomas clock. They were made by the dozens back in the 1860s or 90s, and not worth much today, because to be valuable, something has to be rare, in good condition, and desirable. This was not rare. They made them by the hundreds. It wasn't in good condition. It wasn't working, and I lost the key, and that was a blessing because it stopped chiming when that happened. And who wants it? So just because it's an antique makes it old, or if it's old, it makes it an antique. But for an antique to be valuable, has to be rare, desirable, and in good condition. So this went for $65 at my parents' estate sale. Done. Okay, and the last point, and then we'll sort of wind up and take questions. But how we love someone lives in our heart, not in their things. But that doesn't mean that things don't have a connective property. There is a connection, a connective property that if you own something that belonged to someone, it does help you connect them. And I am not saying get rid of it all. I am saying keep the pearls and not the piano. Cherish the few and the small, not the many and the large. So I like people to think about going on a treasure hunt if they're trying to remember their things from their past, or from their children's growing up, or from their late husband, or from their parents, and find just a couple small things that they attach to, and keep them and cherish them. Because if they keep the big stuff, it clutters up their life. If they keep too many things rather than the few, if they keep the many, when everything is important, nothing is important. So it just overwhelms. So pick a few things. I have a couple paintings from my parents' house. I have my dad's cigar box, things that he used and touched every day. My mom loved her pearls. So that's enough, because when you have too many things, they lose their specialness. So again, when I'm cleaning out my parents' house, even my own house, it's tempting to keep so much, but you don't want to congest your life anymore. And if you can live by example too, and show your clients, maybe they see how you live, although you probably don't have them to your home. Maybe you show them pictures. Maybe you show them pictures from other homes that were cluttered with too much stuff. And when the lights went on and the owner saw how much better things looked when they were thinned out, and you could show before and after, the client can start to see the light and have a better thought. This is my vanity that I have from my mom, and this is what I have. But it's maybe a little shrine, a little weird that way. But she has these crystal birds that she collected. These crystal birds. She liked Nina Ricci perfume, the one with the little bird on the top. That was her fragrance. I can smell her. Those are her pearls. And she had this little coin purse that she got in the 60s, and she carried it everywhere. She was always her coin purse, and it reminded me of how frugal she was. She, every penny mattered to her, and she kept her change in that little coin purse. And there's a picture of me as a little girl with my hand in her hair, and that's all I need. that's mom, and that's enough. So there we go. And we lost her in 2016, but she lives in my heart anyway. So how you love someone lives in your heart, not in their stuff. All right, so summing up, this, for you and for your other clients and for everybody out there, this is not a one-time effort. I like to think of it as a lifestyle. You need to constantly shed, constantly let go, constantly reevaluate, constantly reconsider. When you bring something in, try to get rid of other things. Constantly be purging, thinning, lightening, and letting go of, so you can live more beautifully now and live in the present and not in the past. And that's it. So I'll just sum up. This is their books on the downsizing that can help, the blended home, and then the family home, and everything you would own, what to do with it. And I'm happy to take questions.
I want to thank you very much before we hop on questions, because I'm reading the chat as you're talking, and it is amazing to hear how many of us are actually right-sizing our homes or are cleaning out things, and people talking about starting in a closet and some of the things that you've asked. A bunch of them want to know where to get your books. So thank you for putting that out there. I would love for people to chime in and ask Marni questions. Other than the host, Donald, myself, and Debbie Gentry, we're your hosts, and we're happy to ask questions for you, but we prefer that you guys get involved and do it as well. So anybody, please.
32 up here on the chat. I'm so glad. I feel like I was talking in a total tunnel. And so I'm glad to know you're out there and you're listening and appreciating it. So thank you, Heather. I'd love to read the chat too. So do I jump into this chat here and see what the questions are, or how should we go?
I'm kind of hoping somebody unmutes themselves. Oh, Debbie, go ahead.
Yep, that's what I was going to say. Anybody that wants to ask a question, please unmute yourself.
Perfect. Yeah, fire away.
So Riz, one of the things that you have been talking about is that you're scanning in your recipes and things like that. What kind of tools are you using to do those sorts of things? Because those are great ideas. Scan them in, you always have the memory.
Yeah, so there's an app called Cam Scanner. You could use that. It's an app on your phone. Or you can do the traditional way, right? If you have a scanner, scan it in that way. I have a scanner, so I'm just scanning it that way. It takes time, but what I'm doing is I'm putting it in a Google Drive, and then I can share it with all my family members, you know what I mean? And so if they need an idea to make any kind of recipe, go to the drive, the books are there, and hopefully that will encourage them to upload whatever they have, or even just put in a Word document of recipes, South Asian recipes or whatever recipes they have, you know what I mean? So it's a share and collaborate kind of situation right here with the books. So that's what we're doing in our household. So we're doing what you said right there with a decluttering, and I'm like helping my mom do that. I'm helping my grandma do that, and I'm doing that myself because I don't need all this stuff, like I don't want my stuff to be a burden to my kids. So I'm already planning it out for myself already.
Love it. That's brilliant. And I'll add, and I mentioned this in my books, that there's also services. What you've done with the recipe books is perfect, but photos are often a big sticking point. And, for those who still have lots of snapshots as opposed to digital images, there's a company that I've used and I recommend in my books called Scan My Photos. It's in California, in Costa Mesa or Irvine, but they do like 3 million photos a day and they've never lost one. The owner, Mitch Goldstone, tell him I sent you. I sent him 3,000 photos of my life from like kids, pre-kids to 2005. And he put them all in a disc and a thumb drive, and I've stored it and I've put it on thumb drives and given it to my kids. So we all have it in a little dinky thumb drive, and it's on our laptops. We can find pictures easily and share, and nobody's carrying around this big coffin of photos anymore, right? So it's wonderful. Scanning is a wonderful thing for sharing and storing.
So one thing that I have found in my business, because I do a whole lot of this in our area, People have a real hard time, like you said, with the value that is perceived.
Mhm.
And what I try to do, because people have tons of books, tons of magazines, I help them understand that somebody else can utilize those books, because of all our nursing homes around here
Mm.
have a library, and they use magazines for what I call arts and crafts.
Mm.
So you can't imagine the amount of books and magazines I've carted out of people's houses, because even if you tackle one small area, you'd be amazed. And my dad's 97, and that's my goal, is to just tackle that one category, and he would have all kinds of room. So just don't try to take the whole elephant and eat it. Take one section.
Yep, that's wonderful. I think so many people I've found just want to know that it's going into good hands as opposed to the dumpster. And that's such a valuable, if they say, oh, somebody can use it, especially that generation, they used everything and they didn't waste anything. And if they know it can be used, it really helps take a lot of the sting away from letting go. So good idea.
I want to thank somebody just purchased your book actually for one of their clients, which I thought was a really great idea. And I'm trying to find out.
They're all on Amazon, by the way. So anyway, they're up, and wherever books are sold, all of them. So it's easy to find them.
Whoever it was that said that they just ordered. Oh, Michelle Saccini. I don't know. I hope I didn't butcher that too hard. Just ordered one of your books for her client.
Thank you, Michelle.
So I think it's nice. And I appreciate for you coming. Donald, questions? Anybody?
Yeah. So how do you face the challenge? I think you touched on it, but everybody, as you mentioned, everybody thinks their stuff is worth a fortune, and or it'll come back in style in 10 years. I mean, I'm sure you hear that often, right? I mean, I remember the bell-bottom days, and then just not too long ago, they came back. But it's interesting to hear people that do those sorts, that have those types of questions. How do you fight those challenges? Because they're tough.
So with regard to it'll come back, I have talked to many designers in my day, and they're very clever. They go back to the past and bring it forward with a twist. Very important. It's always like the bell bottoms used to be lowrider bell bottoms, but what's back in style today are high-waisted bell bottoms. Oh well. And plus, I'm sorry, I don't know about you, Donald, but I can't fit into the bell bottoms I wore in the 70s. So I might as well get a new pair.
Not happening for me.
Yeah. So, the avocado green shag carpet, let's hope it doesn't come back. But if it does, there'll be something different about it. So no, don't keep it because you think it's going to come back in style. I mean, some things are classic and they're ever gold earrings, black dress, pearls, all those things. Sure, keep them. But trends are meant to come back with a twist. So that's what I tell myself. If it ever comes back in style, they'll do something a little different and it won't be quite right. So I'm just going to let it go.
So where do you think this is going to go? People are going to always push you away when you start asking to declutter. I know when I talk to, my customers, they look at me like I have three heads when I'm asking them, you just have too much stuff. People can't walk from this room to this room without running through an obstacle course. It can become challenging at times.
Absolutely. I think at some point, if they can't see it, it's very difficult. But if they can see it and they want it, but they just don't know how to get there, there's hope. And what I have liked to do, even personally, I have things that are very hard to let go of. I say, okay, to myself, and I've said this to other people, you don't have to get a divorce right now, but you can have a trial separation. So let's put all these things that you think you might want, and we're not going to get these quilts or things that you're attached to, and maybe you'll never use, let's just put them in a box in the garage. I hate the word for now, but for now. And just see what their life is like when it's parked off of their site for 6 months or 3 months. And so if it's for selling the house, say, okay, let's just for now, for you and me, for purposes of getting this house looking right, let's just not get rid of it. Let's just park it in the garage, hopefully not in storage, and just get it out. And then they can start to feel what it looks like and feels like to breathe and have less clutter. And when these things are off-site, or maybe they can put them at one of their kids' homes, payback time, right? Because you've been storing your kids' stuff for a long time. Just get it off campus. And then when you go back to it and open that box, it kind of goes, oh, I didn't think about these purses all this time. I must really not need them, even though they were valuable and they had their day. I think that helps. So that trial separation, putting them off campus in a box, out of sight, but not getting rid of them, that plus showing them on Craigslist what they really are, what their real value is, despite what you paid for them. Today's value on today's market is what counts.
The conversation I use for a listing appointment, if they have a lot of stuff, is that let's minimize all your personal items so that the potential buyer can envision their own stuff in your house. If your house is full, they can't see their stuff in there.
Yep. Yes, exactly. And I will add to that. Is that Carla talking? I will add to that. When I was a live-in home stager, I had to keep the house impersonal, right? Not a lot of family photos, that kind of thing, which was fine. And I just, I forgot what I was going to say. Also, what I like to tell people is, and what I was trying to project was, everything was so, I didn't even get the towel wet, right? Everything looked perfect when people walked in. And the idea was, if I lived here, my life would fall into place too. And moreover, since I tried not to fill anything. I tried to keep everything like 2/3, 3/4 full of a shelf. And furthermore, you'd open the linen closet, it's only half full or 2/3 full. What's more, I'd have plenty of room. So it psychologically, it tells the person like everything will fall into place. There's plenty of room when you don't have everything packed to the gills. I think if you can help people understand that if it's temporary, if they don't really want to get rid of things forever, although eventually they may come around, but this is going to get them more money now if they can thin out their cupboards, because you do have to project a lifestyle, and you do have to project plenty of storage space, and you do have to project that this house was owned by people who cared and had standards and kept things in a very good shape and not cluttered and overwhelmed.
Marni, I got a question. Listening to all of the stuff that you have done with the books and with your syndicated column, what is one of your proudest accomplishments? You got a lot going on.
That's such a sweet question. And somebody just asked me that recently, and I said, it's true. I've my books and my column and my career has done everything I wanted it to. But I'll tell you what, Heather, I am most proud of the fact that I have raised 2 daughters that I love to have dinner with. And they are delightful, productive, fun human beings and they're now 26 and 28. And they are just people I really like. And I now am blessed with 3 more kids. I had the easy way. And, my life is very full, but I take full blame and responsibility for the 2 that I raised. And I think that I'm very proud of them.
That's beautiful.
Thank you.
Beautiful. Any more questions? We still have a few more minutes to talk, and I kind of quickly introduced myself when we started this, and I just wanted to introduce the rest of the team because there's a team of us. We have Donald Maycott, who's a realtor out of the Villages in Florida. We have Debbie Gentry, who's also a realtor and broker out of the Villages in Florida on our team. Eve Hill, which is the person that does all of our flyers and stuff that goes and helps with marketing for our network, is great. All of us here just are in it to help educate and empower the 55 market, because it's a huge market and it's only getting bigger as we've talked about throughout this Zoomcast.
Yeah.
So very nice.
It's a great space to be in, and seniors, there's a huge population, and this is the biggest, the generation that's consumed more than any generation in history. And so it's a new problem in a way. I do think Donald started to ask, where is this going? I thought he was going to ask me kind of like, what do you see? How do you see this playing out in 40 years or so? I do think that the millennials don't have this problem. They don't. I don't call it a problem. They're not as sentimental. Everything's on a disk drive or on their phones, and they want to be able to be nimble. They want to be able to move with ease, and they don't get as attached to things like Ziploc bags, like my mom used to reuse. They can let it go, right? So they can be more disposable, but they also want to be sustainable. They want to leave a lighter footprint. Don't get that attached to stuff. I think because they didn't grow up with scarcity, and my parents grew up with scarcity. They came to the Depression era, and so it's different. I don't think we're going to see the same attachment to stuff. They're going to have other problems, but I don't think that's going to be one of them.
So, Marni, do you have any stats on what the average cost to move is, or any of that type of stuff? Because I know I've used have you checked to see how much the move's going to cost you if you take everything? I encourage people to bring a pod. I don't care what size of pod you want to get, but one. I had a lady recently that bought a 1,100 square feet house, and in the middle of the transaction, I found out she had 5 pods coming. And I'm like, okay, good problem that you got it, not me. But, I'm wondering if there's a way to encourage people to realize, okay, that's really going to cost you if you want to cart all that wherever you're going.
I don't have current stats. I'm sure they're available, but I know that there's paying by the hour and paying by the mile, depending on if you're moving locally or long distance. So it's by the weight if you're moving long distance, and by the hour. So there are different formulas, but 100% more expensive if you have more stuff. So it's a very good wake-up call if you have a moving company come over and say, your house weighs 11 tons. And if you want to move it, it's going to cost you this much. And you then suddenly learn how to lose 5 tons in a hurry. And not only do you lose the tons that you have to move, but you also get the money from selling off those things. So, for that gal who has 5 pods, what I did when my husband and I were blending houses, and again, we had 2 fully loaded houses, and that's all in the blended homes. Like, I thought everything, I'm like, oh, honey, I got this. I've got beautiful stuff. Just don't worry about it. I'll fix the house. He's like, wait, I don't want to feel like I'm living in your house. I like my stuff too. Oh, darn it. Right. So, okay. So then I had to do this floor plan. And before we bought the house, but it was, we had time before we moved into it. And I would measure and put furniture around. And then he'd say, well, I see a lot of your furniture. Where's mine? Oh, well, we have your knives. I'm pretty sure we'll use your coffee maker, no. So, we had, but I guess the story is to put a floor plan together and measure it. And, it's not that hard. Use 1/4 inch square graph paper per foot and say your sofa's 12 feet long and you have a 6-foot wall. So it's not going to work. So it helped them get real with the math and the numbers and not cart everything into the house and stuff it and make it miserable from day one.
I think another thing that people don't realize, auctions are still available in most parts of the country. If you really think your things are that valuable, use auction houses.
Oh, yeah.
In our area, we have tons of companies that do estate sales. And I will tell you that you get some really good stuff at estate sales if you're looking for it.
Yeah.
But other places may not have those same things. But I think a lot of it psychologically is the value, because people did grow up in the Depression where they did save the bread wrappers because they didn't want to use the Ziploc bags. And so now their mentality is that Tupperware that fills the whole cupboard must be worth, $100 when it's worth nothing. So it's having people realize the price and maybe realize that they can get some money off of it by doing auctions or estate sales to get something like your china for $250.
Absolutely. I talk about that in Everything You Own, Leave Legacy You Want, how to liquidate things, how to handle collections, like your prized collection of marbles or stamps or, I don't know, one-eyed dolls. There's actually glass eyeballs, like people collect glass eyeballs. Okay. Your family won't appreciate these things, but there are people who do, and make sure the collection falls into the right hands and gets sold appropriately. So not only does the item go to people who will appreciate it, but you get the most money for it to be able to put that toward either your children's, trust or into your will or into a concern you care about, a scholarship fund. So, but you have to make sure things get routed correctly, and auction houses are great for certain items of value, but you have to talk people off the ledge. The auctioneers I talk to say I'm far more often telling people that something they think is worth something is not worth anything than I am telling them that something they think is not worth something is worth something. But it does happen.
Thank you, Marni, for everything. We're going to have to wrap up because we got to get in a 15-minute break for everybody before our next speaker. But
no worries. Can I get a copy of the chat?
Yes. Donald, are you able to do that for her?
Oh, good. I see. I haven't looked at any of the comments, but I'd love to see what people are talking about.
Already have it.
Okay, great.
Thanks,
so for the rest of you, we have Kelly Wheeler coming on next. We're going to go for a 15-minute break. Kelly Wheeler, if you don't know, he's doing real estate marketing. So he's going to talk about how to find a senior seller, how to handle a senior seller. So given all the information that we've had with our last two speakers and what's coming up next with our next two speakers, we'll all get out there and go market to the senior sellers after this. So Donald, anything?
Nope, that's it. Take a break. Go get some
Take
water.
a break. We'll see you in 15.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Marni.
Marni, thank you
everything.
so much.
It was a
Thanks.
pleasure. Okay, bye-bye now.
All right, bye.
Let's see.
Are we coming back?
Yes, 2 o'clock, Kelly Wheeler will be live and ready to go on marketing.
Thank you so much.